Now, up until this point, I would say everything has been pretty simplistic. I've gone at a really slow pace. I've answered all questions in the comments, and I think everybody has understood exactly what we've looked at so far. This is going to be the first video, and this one and the ones after this is where things are going to get a little bit confusing. It won't be the hardest thing we see in C++, but it's definitely difficult if you are a beginner and this is your first programming language. So I'm going to try to make this as simplistic as possible. Now, we're not going to write all of our code inside the main.cpp. We might have thousands of lines of code, and it's going to get a little messy, and it's going to be hard to find what we want. So we're going to divide things up with classes, and classes will also allow us to tell which parts of our program are allowed to use what's inside of our class. We don't have to let everything use it. And we're going to see exactly how we do that in a few videos, but now let's go see how we can make our new classes and what we should have inside of those classes. And then we'll go and look at the content in a bit. So we're going to start off with our main.cpp, as always, so we can go ahead and write those preprocessor commands. Just do the usual, make your main function and your return value. So there we go. That's nothing that we haven't seen so far. Now you see here that I have two more files. We have the main.cpp, which we've seen every time, and that's the spine of our program, and the main function is going to be the script that our program is going to read to follow exactly what it needs to do. So that's always going to remain true, and you always have to remember that, and it's going to have a bit more meaning now because we have the lemming.cpp and the lemming.h. Now these are from the lemming class. So I've made a class and I've decided to call it lemming. You can absolutely call it whatever you want. When you make a new class, you're going to get a .cpp file and you're going to get a .h header file. The header file is going to contain the header of your function, and as we've seen in the past, that is going to amount to everything before the body, so everything that is not in the curly braces, including the data type, like we've seen when we were prototyping in the last video. And then we have the .cpp, which is going to be the body of your functions, which are going to be everything inside the curly braces. So before we actually get into that, let's go ahead and make these. So how do you make these two things? So in Xcode, you're going to want to go to File on top. You're going to want to press New, and you're going to want to press New File. Instead of pressing New Project, you're going to go and press New File. You're going to locate the C++ file. You're going to press Next. And here you're going to write whatever you want to call the class. So make sure it's something that you want it to be called because you're going to be using that name often now. And you're going to also make the header file. You're going to press Next. I already have one made, so I'm going to press Cancel. Now, here we have our main. And we're going to go take a look at our CPP file. There's nothing inside there. Now, as I've mentioned in the past, our CPP files always need to have the same start, the same preprocessor commands, and define the namespace. So we're going to include that right now. So you're going to write hashtag include IOStream. Now you're going to want to include something else. Now, remember when I said the include preprocessor command is for including files? We just went and we made a new file, right? So shouldn't we be including something? Absolutely. You're going to write include as well, and this is going to apply to the main as well. We'll go there in a moment. And instead of triangle braces, you're going to put this in quotation marks. Whenever you do this with a header file, you're going to do it in quotations, and you're going to write the name of the header. In this case, it's lemming.h, and then using namespace std and end it off with a semicolon. Now we can go to the main.cpp and we can do exactly that as well. We're going to add in that header file. So lemming.h right there. So we have our two CPP files are going to be starting with the exact same 3 lines, exactly what you want to do. The header is different. When you make your header, you're going to get a bunch of lines that are pre-made for you. You're going to want to just leave these as is, and we're going to be making our class in the middle here, between the end if and the include the here. So you're going to want to just ignore those and leave those inside of your header. Just don't mess around with those. These are the only two we wanted to be set up. So once everything is set up like this, now we can get started. So we're going to be making our headers of our functions, which is going to be like the void function name, open bracket, close bracket, then end it off with a semicolon, as we've seen before. We'll be putting those in here. We're going to be writing what's inside of those functions in here, and then we're going to be telling the main exactly what order we want things to be executed in here. Now there's a lot of intricacies to making new classes, so I'm going to divide those up into more videos. So right now let's just see how we can get started. So once you're ready to make your new class, you have your header file, you're going to go and write the word class. Simple enough. You're going to write the name of your class, and we've already said that that's going to be called lemming. And now you're going to go ahead and you're going to not put the open and close bracket because we're not making a function now. We are going to press the curly brace, and then you're going to go ahead and close the curly brace. And you notice that your curly brace will close with a semicolon at the end of it. If you're in Xcode, it will do it automatically. If you're not in Xcode, make sure you do it. You'll have to end that off right there. Now inside the class, we are going to have three restrictions, I guess you can say, or permissions, and it's going to be how the program is allowed to access what's inside of the class. You can make it available for everything, you can make it available for some things, or you can make it only available for the class. So we can go ahead and take a look at that right now. You can have public, and you're going to end that off with a colon. You're going to have protected, you're going to end it off with a colon, and you'll have private. Now we're going to get into examples of all these later on, and believe me, this is going to go on for a while. But public is going to mean everything in your program can access whatever you list under the public tab. Everything that has been given permission to use it can use stuff that is in the protected tab, and nothing outside of the class can use things that are in the private tab. However, there are workarounds because sometimes we want to put variables inside of our private tab, but we want to use those variables elsewhere, and believe me, that's a whole nother video. So in here, you're going to be wanting to list the names of your functions, just the start of the function, for example. Now in the lemming.cpp, we're going to want to put the bodies of our functions, and we're going to do this in a specific way. We can't just go ahead and write lemming function, right? We need to do something specific. We need to write lemming, which is the name of the class now. You're going to put colon, colon, and then you're going to write the name of your function. Now, the first function that you're going to see here has a special name to it, and it's going to be called the constructor. Now, I can't really get into details about the constructor now. Just remember that this is going to be a special one. So let's go down here, and we're going to make, let's say, the official function, because we're going to call this void, because we need to define the data type. You don't need to define the data type for the constructor, but you're going to see that special, and we're going to deal with that in the next video. Your void, you're going to call this void lemming, because that's the name of the class. And we can call this, we'll just call it function, just so you get a simple example. We're not going to get into details. And now you have your body. You could write whatever you want inside of your function. This is a function inside of the lemming class. End line, as we've seen before, printing it out on screen. So that means whenever we have this function in the lemming class, it will call up this text to be printed on screen. Now you need to go to your lemming header in the public, because we want the whole program to use it. You're still going to have to write your first one, which you've seen, and it doesn't have a data type, the constructor. We'll get to that next video, so just ignore that for now. And then you'd have to write the data type in here of which one you want to use. So say the void function, and there we have put it in the header, and we see our errors will disappear. Well, they will disappear. There they go. They've gone now. So now you see that we have this in here, and now we have to find a way to put it in your main. Now, I'm going to deal with this next video because it is a little bit confusing, and now we're going to have to look at constructors and objects. So I hope you guys see the basics in this video about how we would put the content of your function in here. You would put the header of the file in here, and we're eventually going to use objects to put them in the order that we want everything to be executed in here. So this was a small video. I'm going to have a more detailed one on the constructor that we just saw and objects in the next video. So make sure you watch that one as well, because this one will not give you the full story. Goodbye.